Okay, welcome to third episode of Journey into Mastery. I'm James McKenzie with Matt Baker, and today we have a guest, Martin Dulabic.
Yes.
Who is currently estimating for us at Journey Flooring. And today we're going to be looking into, I guess, how estimating has changed up to the current point and how we did it in the past, as well as how Martin did it. He's been in the industry. Has it been 15 years now
About
that you've been
yeah.
in? Yeah, okay. Yeah. So, yes, basically, I'm sure everybody that's in the industry at some point has had to pull out the ruler, right? And just start opening up plans, getting a scale, and trying to figure out what we got to get for the job.
And the highlighters.
The highlighters,
yes.
Right? That's a key. Actually, that's a real key because I never did that on the paper. But that's something that you do on our current system that's fantastic, is different colors for different materials. So back in the earliest I can remember doing it is probably like 25 years ago. The blueprints, get the scale, and then just start measuring and taking takeoffs on paper. And then probably, 5 or 6 years ago with Journey, Matt, you can kind of explain the system we used back then, which I thought was a real leap. And so how did we do it?
I was doing it a while back with, I started printing full-size plans and then, using the measurements, and they only give you part measurements, so then you're trying to make your own scale and figure it all out. So squaring everything off, lengths and widths, and doing it as accurate as you can by hand.
Right.
And then the technology coming along had to improve, and then we started using AutoCAD. So that was a good system, but you have to scale it to bring it into the system, make sure it's right, and then be able to highlight, do a perimeter line, and group each material in a blocking, and then I was using spreadsheets and AutoCAD and making our own takeoff estimation.
Which I felt like that was a huge advancement just to go to AutoCAD. Because the biggest trick was just finding a known measurement to get your scale. And then after that, it was just drawing perimeters. And so it was a big step, I felt.
It gave us an accuracy that others didn't have, because I think a lot of people were still using the plans.
Yeah.
They would just hope for the best and square
everything off.
But when you square it off, you want to err on the side of caution, so you're making a lot of rooms larger than needs to be, and it's 11'7", well, push it up to 12 foot, and then you do that over and over and over.
It adds up.
And it really adds up. So you have plus 3-4% on jobs. That's usually where maybe that's all the waste you want to put in there.
Right.
But then guys would add waste on top of that. So it's just the accuracy does matter. So that's probably part of today's talk is accuracy matters, and that we have to come up into the technology to be aggressive and bid with the accuracy that we want.
And have confidence in that too, right?
Yeah, we've come across a few bids where the contractor says, there's such a difference between your quote and the other. And we can stand firm saying, pretty sure the other quote is off. And they have circled back and said, they had to buy materials 2 and 3 times. And again, that's up to a contractor to understand how those, if bids are too far off, why that would be. and that out. Nobody wants to hit an end user with overages or with and nobody really should want a sub to be in the hole for a job. Like no one wants to work for nothing, right? And if a contractor's wanting that, then hey, nobody wants to work with them.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And mistakes can happen, but how do we mitigate or limit the amount of mistakes, right? So, I mean, I don't know, let's ask Martin, but where I started, and I'm sure in school we used to have the drafting tables.
Yeah, that's right.
The angled tables, and we would have to draft and do our own drafting as a part of trades in just even high school.
Yep.
I don't know if that's still there now.
Yeah, and Martin would know better because you did the whole. Is it a gold seal program for estimating, or is it?
No, it was a diploma.
Okay.
But it was like, so I went to school in Winnipeg, and it was building design technology,
Right.
where we did AutoCAD, project management, and project estimation,
Right.
along with some other things, but those were the kind of the big ones. And we had the angled drafting table, where we did manual drafting at the beginning, and then AutoCAD afterwards. And we had project management and estimating courses. They didn't, at school, we were more on learning as a GC. Okay, so the bids are coming in, you put them in the spreadsheets for all the different divisions. Once I got into the real world, that's when I had to do the actual takeoffs. And same thing at the beginning, print off the blueprints. We don't even call them blueprints anymore. Print off the drawings and then highlight, have a little notepad to take all the notes. So that was for quite a while, until I'd say 2018, when the company I was working at the time, they were using something called PlanSwift, which is similar to what we're using now. And you do the takeoff on the computer. And then I switched to Stack, what we're using now, which is more cloud-based, which I really like. So you don't have to worry about losing your files or saving your progress. It's all done for you. And yeah, it's essentially what we did before, but on a digital version. And this process is the same. You pick your line item, you assign a color to it, check your scale, make sure it's accurate, because sometimes the scale on the drawing is not accurate. They'll say it's 1/8, but then when you double check the existing measurements, it's actually a 1/4 inch.
Right.
So that's something you have to keep in mind. It doesn't happen a lot, but it happens enough where you have to really check it. So yeah, that's where we're at right now. And the technology is constantly evolving. Now they're starting to add AI into these estimates. And I got a notification from the program saying, because I'm going to do like a training session with them. And they're like, okay, well, if you want to, instead of manually counting all the doors on the project, the AI can now count it for you.
That's amazing.
That's amazing. So we'll see.
To a degree.
To agree.
Well,
No.
I mean, it's another data point. Like you still have to double check that, right?
Have to, yeah.
Yes.
But it's still another double check or another data point.
So right now, the program allows me, if I want to check, for example, the tile, it's labeled TL1 on this drawing. I can search it, it highlights all the TL1 on all the drawings.
Oh, wow.
I use that always as a double check.
Okay.
Like I'll do it manually first.
Question about that. These drawings are uploaded as like, are they just they're like a static PDF, are they not?
Correct.
So the AI is actually doing a visual, some type of visual scan to find the lettering.
Yes.
TL1, and then it's identifying that. So it's doing some pretty impressive processing in order to do it, because it's not like it's searching a document that's searchable on the plan level, right? Like on the drawing.
I think it kind of is, though, because essentially it is a PDF. Like any PDF is searchable, right? If you have a document.
Does it bring up the when you do that search? Like maybe I'm just wrong, but I would have thought like the stuff that's on the drawings, all the printing that's on the drawings is simply just like a vector. It's not a raster.
I'm not sure.
Oh.
On that level, but it is. I don't. Yeah.
I know all the
it's able-
notes are searchable, so maybe
Yes.
maybe it is.
Yeah, anything is because it
Right.
because it does.
Okay.
Even right now, this isn't even AI we're talking about.
Yeah,
This is
just you searching through the PDF.
Yes, I just searched through it in that program, and it highlights it. So I use that as a double check. You know,
Okay.
because again, it doesn't catch everything.
Right.
So it's always a double check after I've already done it. Yeah.
That's still pretty impressive.
Yeah, and the program it's as advanced and as complicated as you make it.
Right.
I'm keeping it pretty simple. I just use it to extract the information, but you can do well because right now I extract the information and then I will add that information to our Google Sheets or Excel sheets, but you can actually do that within the program itself.
Oh, okay.
And some people do. Again, I had training sessions with them. My thought is like that works better on a GC level,
I
not
see.
as a subtrade,
Right.
because it's we need to be more accurate, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Oh, that's really interesting. And I guess, I mean, we're always thinking ahead too. Like one of the projects that we're working on here at Journey Flooring is doing going on site and being able to do takeoffs, live takeoffs on sites. And what's one of the projects that we're looking at doing to make that a little bit easier and more accurate, Matt? That's something that we've been looking at doing.
For site measures?
Yeah, so we've been just looking at new technologies for that, and
There's LiDAR technology now that it's still fairly expensive, but that you can do walkthroughs and 3D scanning. That, but I don't think it'll ever.
it's a different thing. It's a different aspect of it, right?
There has to be human interaction.
Right.
Like we can get as advanced as we can with all the tooling, but
Yeah.
there's still this takeoff. I was going to say too about in-house versus subbed out.
Right.
Doing the takeoffs. We get emails all the time, people looking to outsource the estimation, but I mean you can't beat having a trained expert in-house and be able to sit down, review it, and look at all those fine details. I mean,
It's
the
game-changing,
The
really.
notes, sometimes these IFC drawings are 900 pages, right?
Right.
And so we have to search through, pull out the information related to us,
Yeah.
and be able to
And not miss something.
yeah. So second set of eyes on it, and if it was just outsourced, I think the trust would have to be so high. How do we build a trust? We know what Martin can do too, right? So
Oh yeah, no, it's been a game changer
his
for
level
us.
of detail. I don't know how you could build the trust outsourcing it. And if they miss it, they have no ownership over it. And if we miss something, we can do quick correction so it doesn't keep happening. But if you just fully hope that some outsourcing company can do it, I think you'd be in for a hurting time, because they will miss all those small details of. Pull an example like side skirting. They missed having it on two sides,
Right.
or they see a wall and they don't realize the cove base wraps the wall, or tile wraps all four sides, or that, right? So there's they might account for material on stairs, but not 4 sides or 6 sides in a custom home.
Right.
Stairs, and that's the stuff that the detail and expertise. Martin's bringing that every day here, so it was super valuable on Martin's side. Getting him on site every once in a while.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll probably do again to get on site, but I showed up last week on site to one of one of our upcoming jobs, and it was just an open warehouse. No walls were in or anything. It was almost pointless to go. But you connect, you talk about the project. It's even 10 minutes, and it's a good connection, because all this bidding and it's just numbers, but you still want to connect with the guys, and you build up rapport with all the generals and contractors that we're dealing with, and they can tell when we ask questions that maybe aren't on the plans, like, oh, what's the transition here? Like, how do you want to, you got a big height transition. Right. Is this going to be leveled up? Are we tapering it off? How are we doing that? And some of that discussion, nobody could do that by outsourcing it. They just are chunking numbers your direction, and
it, probably the accuracy goes back down to where you're at, where you're squaring everything off, and so you're just losing the gains that you have with the technology, without having that connection with the person.
I think so.
So you get back to that same level of margin of error, and we're always talking about margin of error in the industry, like for the installers, for every aspect of it, the quoting, the every aspect of the business. It's all about reducing that margin of error, so that there is always going to be things that happen. It's inevitable that there are going to be issues on every job, pretty much. But if we can reduce the amount of errors that we introduce into the system by having processes and systems in place, and also, like you mentioned, 2 sets of eyes. Always try to get 2 sets of eyes, or even a 3rd set of eyes on every project before we finalize, just so that we have that little bit of extra, oh yeah, there's that pony wall that we didn't see. Let's make sure that gets added in, or whatever. And it may seem small, but at the end of the day, all those little extras that we can add up, and they win jobs. I mean, as you know, your record has shown, these are we're winning more and more all the time, and a lot of it is that attention to detail.
Yeah, and a big part too is doing the follow-ups with the GCs, and that's where it's tricky, because sometimes they don't answer. You call, leave a message, nobody calls back. Send an email, nobody replies. So you kind of had to hunt them down to extract information. Oh, you didn't get it. Okay, well, why? You're high. Well, how much? Well, I can't tell you the number. Well, can you give me the percentage? Oh, you're 10% high. Okay, that's good information. I can look back at my sheets and see, okay, where could we have dropped it, and all the information you need, and we use that for future bids, and that helps us be competitive, and sometimes there's nothing you can do. It's just, I guess somebody was more hungry, and they're doing it for next to nothing. And what I noticed last year compared to now, last year was like, how you'd see some of these, you're 20% high. How? Where did that come from?
Not possible.
Now it seems to be a little less.
Right.
So maybe some of those guys who are doing it for next to nothing, like, well, I actually can't continue this, and so it's good in a sense. It's like it's a bushfire, right? It's just takes away the dead stuff, and now the real stuff is left behind. So
Hey, without giving some of our secrets or percentages or margins and all that, let's have a little idea about how each is catered to the job. We can't use a cookie cutter system, or else you wouldn't win half the jobs. So do you want to say a little bit of how we, just loosely, I don't want to tell too many people, but how we, there's a different price grids maybe, or like residential versus commercial versus custom homes, and there are different scales or rates or whatnot.
For sure. Obviously, let's call them custom high-end homes versus anything commercial is going to be priced very differently. With the estimating is like, my thought is like 90% of the estimating is you doing the takeoff and extracting the information and loading it onto spreadsheet, let's call it, or what we have, our takeoff sheet, our costing sheet. And then the other 10%, that's as equally as important as the 90%, because that's where you make, like, it's sort of the make and break, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's a custom home. It's going to be, labor is going to be this amount. Material is going to be marked up this amount, versus this is a big box store that we can do for this much, and we know because we've done it before for this much. So it's really, like you said, different categories are going to require different pricing. And the great thing is having all this information digitized. The drawings are digitized, the spreadsheets are digitized. So if we want to call back and reference a similar previous jobs we've done, it's at our fingertips.
Right.
We can have them side by side open and see, okay, well, we got this one for this amount. We'll be able to get it for this if we stay, or we were. They told us we were 5% high. Okay, well, let's drop it 5%. So.
Right.
Yeah, having that information available is amazing, and yeah, each job is its own thing. Luckily, I'm seeing a lot of similar jobs. You know, like a certain bank that we're doing, just at different locations.
Right.
And the drawings are drawn by the same architects. The designs are by the same designer. The material is the same material that they're speccing. So once you've done one, it's like, okay, this is. Gets easier, and it's lets us be more accurate. You know?
Yep, that's great.
Yeah, it's and then another aspect of it, I think, is, you know, we have the estimating software, the estimating portion of it, and then we have the sit downs and the handoffs, and then another aspect of it here that we really rely on is like the systems that we use that support the job after the quote's been won, the PO's been issued. And I know that we work together quite a bit on developing these systems so that the job flows very smoothly. And what are some things, like from your experience in the industry of estimating, that we do a little bit differently here that maybe you've seen in some of your other places that you've worked?
I think the system we have is amazing, and it's I guess the difference is it's fully digital ground up. And it's very intuitive, easy to use, and it's automated in many ways. It's completely automated, which is great. I mean, not completely, but heavily automated. So it just makes it easier. You know, you add one thing, it gets moved to another thing. You know.
Right.
So yeah, it's completely automated. It's automated in that sense.
Right.
And yeah, and it's, I feel, intuitive. It's having a big whiteboard, but on the computer, where everything is on there, and yeah, it's fantastic. I think what we have is great. We just keep reiterating it, and just making it better. You know.
Yeah, everything's all about these small incremental changes. This is something that I learned from my brief stint working with Home Depot. One of the store manager was one of the best in the country. The store was always vying for number 1, number 2 in the country. And what our store manager, Tim, would often say is, it's all about making the small corrections. You don't want to go ditch to ditch when you're making a correction, thinking about driving and overcorrecting the steering wheel and going from one ditch to the other ditch. That's not what we're all about. What we're trying to do is make those small, little incremental corrections, letting it play out, see how that manifests itself in results, whether it's a positive or a negative result, and then moving forward from there, like just basically making those small adjustments on a regular basis, and then circling back around and really reviewing what it is that you've done there, and being aware of what it is that you're doing, not just throwing stuff at the wall and hope it sticks type of mentality. Yeah. So, and I think, again, like the estimating piece of the puzzle was always, I'm thinking back like when I was a young guy in the family business, it took a lot before we started winning jobs. I can remember the amount of time that we'd put in. And it was after hours because we're still running a business all day long. Even here at Journey, Matt and I would often stay after work and look at the quotes because it's something that you need full attention on.
Yes.
It's not something that you can just spend a few minutes here during the day and a few minutes there during the day. It's something that you really need to put a lot of focus and attention on. And like Matt was saying, specific to that job.
Yes.
So I can remember it being literally years back in the day with family business before we won our first commercial job. Like it took years and bid after bid after bid and no feedback, very little feedback. Yeah, you're high. Well,
What does that mean?
what does that mean?
Yeah.
Or is that just cover for, actually, I just gave it to my buddy.
That happens too.
And they throw it's high at you as like cover for that or whatever, right? So you gotta be really not just looking for data, but assessing that data. Is that an accurate data point or is that a slightly skewed data point?
Yeah.
And then when we did start winning, going back to, this would have been like late 80s, early 90s, started winning the big jobs like schools and hospitals. This is in the interior. Then the train got rolling and we were winning everything because we got it down to a science. And then you start to win bids with school districts and with city councils, and it's just like, let's do this. Like this is a good company to work with, and now they're trusting that you're the one to go to. And that lasts even till this day. Like I just was talking with my sister who runs our family business now, and she's still got all the hospitals and all the schools. They don't even bid them out unless it's over $70,000. So it's just an automatic. So that's where you get to at a certain point where you get so good at this process that you're the first go-to, right? And I mean, this is a competitive market, so you always have to strive, but there is a point at which you kind of get on top of it, and then you start to see that the results are much more, your rate of success is much higher. Right?
For sure, and I'm seeing that now. We're starting off this year, I think, in a pretty good position, and the relationship we've built and I was able to establish, like last year, just dealing with the GCs, calling them, they're paying off.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just it takes time, but if you just grind at it, if you follow the steps you need to follow, you'll get there. It's never as fast as you want, but that's how it is in the industry. And it's very competitive. Flooring, it's very competitive. Compared to some other industries I've been in, it's quite a bit more.
One of the things I really liked about your process too is I'll overhear when I'm in my office, in your office, that even if we don't get a bid, you'll be phoning and finding out from the architect or the designer who else was bidding this job at the GC level. And not always, but often they'll give you names, a list, and then you're following up by contacting them and just asking them, hey, look, we bid this project with XYZ contractor. Do you want me to throw our bid to you as well?
Yeah.
And I mean, that kind of like due diligence and trying to just hit it from every angle. Because if you can get our bid into every GC that's bidding the job, well, if we've got a good bid, because you can have a great bid. If the GC doesn't win, you don't win.
That's frustrating too when they say, oh yeah, we carried your pricing, it was good, but we didn't get it.
Right.
And the architect didn't want to give me the list of
that
bidders.
happens, right?
That happens quite frequently. And I've asked architects, well, why not? And they said, well, the owner doesn't want it. And at that point, I there's not much I can do,
Yeah.
But
probably just checking numbers, verifying.
Yeah.
To keep them close enough honest, who their regular crews of who they would use.
Yeah.
But they technically have to get.
They have to get at least
they
three
have to get a
anyways,
few
right?
numbers in as comparables.
And the good thing is, even if we didn't, we already picked someone, but let me still send you our number so you have us, you can compare us. And if we're pretty good, if we're pretty accurate, for the next one, send the next bid invite, just get our name in front of as many GCs as possible.
Right.
And it just opens up that pool like there's no shortage of work to quote for me.
Mhm.
It's there, and the more bid requests we get, the more we'll get, more POs we'll get out of it. So, yeah.
There's a limit there too. If a contractor's asked for a dozen bids,
Yeah.
are they and 1-0, are they worth throwing numbers at? Because like that's where we have to insist on communication at some point. It's like, come on guys, like are we just another number here? Oh, like you've got your guys and you just, but the good guys usually they have to rotate it around, right? So they'll use us and then maybe they don't for a couple, and then they'll come back. They'll come back around.
And that's one thing I also noticed last year, quoting to some of these guys and not getting anything, and now this year, like we got two bids from the same GC. And last year we didn't get anything from them, but now, for whatever reason, we're getting it, and maybe they're realizing actually we're more accurate, and maybe they got burnt when the other ones who were cheaper. So, yeah, like Matt said, you have to make that call. There's a couple of GCs from we got nothing.
Or some of them we've got that are just they're giving us the I mean, you can correct me on this, but they give us the crumbs, the small jobs that are really difficult to work. And not to say that we're not willing to try and make it work, but if it's a small PO and you have to get back there 10 times.
There's no money in it.
It just doesn't make a lot of sense, right?
No, and the amount of work you do on it is the same as like a $300,000 project.
Yeah, right.
And some of these, especially the big commercial ones, in terms of the estimating for me, it's sometimes the same work estimating as a $10,000 project.
Right.
That has 5 or 6 different line items, types of materials, and all that.
Yeah.
And then you still have to coordinate getting all the material here and everything.
Yeah, there's a lot in it.
But for a $10,000 project versus a $300,000.
Right.
So it's it's a call you have to make at one point. Okay, we're not going to bid for these guys. Let's try again in a year or so, or have them come to us and say, why aren't you bidding? Well, we didn't get anything.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it.
Yeah.
And I guess like a lot of it comes down to being in a position where, not to say that we're calling the shots, but that we have a little bit more control over how we're dealing with these different contractors, in the sense that we have a certain amount of workload that we've taken on. Now we can be a little bit more selective about the work that we do bid on and the contractors that we bid for, which really does give us a better position to help to work with the better contractors, because it puts us in a situation where, okay, well, these are good guys to work with. We're going to do everything we can to make sure that we're serving that customer, because they do all the things that make it easy for us too, like job site's ready when they say it's going to be, or if it's not going to be, they communicate readily and on time. And payment, like getting paid, like a lot of these contractors, that seems to be a big issue. And I know that there are potential legislation changes that are happening, that are in the works now in BC on timely pay for government projects, but that'll trickle down into the commercial industry as well. So definitely getting that database of GCs that we're bidding with, getting that database of bids that we've done, bids that we've won, bids that we've lost, collating all that data and coming up with better solutions as we move forward.
Yeah, and that's part of the job as an estimator. You have to have that running spreadsheet of what you've bid, and you've done your follow-ups and gathered the information. Each project is different, each GC is different, but you have to have as much info as possible to be competitive on the next bid.
Right. Yeah. Some of the other flooring companies and likely other industries using an estimator, they use their sales guy all the way through. So their sales guy is their first point of contact. They run the estimate, they estimate, they project manage, they order materials. They're walking the entire way through. So one thing that Journey Flooring's trying to do by having everybody in an expertise is there is a faster ability to correct and I think the fault of the other system that I was mentioning there, where one guy carries it all the way through, if he knows the ship's going down, it's all on him, and he can walk away or quit or disappear and lose commission or lose one job. But in how we're working it, by having a dedicated estimator, we can correct when we see a little problem. Or one guy can make the same mistake over 10, 15 jobs, and it
never gets caught.
It never gets caught, and that's probably one of the biggest benefits to have a dedicated estimator.
And I always think estimators should estimate, project managers should project manage. Those two should not be combined, unless it's like a $500 project or something like that. Anything decently sized should be two different people, because they're very different skill sets, mentalities, and it's usually a different type of person who does it. My phone rarely rings, because as the estimator, there's not much need for people to call me. Other than the odd, I'm looking for pricing, give it back to me. But it's usually, if you follow the procedure that I follow, it's not necessary. When I do the estimates, I usually try to do it a week in advance. I send off all the price requests to our suppliers, and they email it back to me. But obviously as a PM, you live on the phone. That's your main tool.
Yeah.
Right.
So you can't merge those. You can't be dealing with a fire on site while you're trying to get an estimate out.
Yeah.
So, and I've been in situations where that was expected. You were the PM and estimator, and it's not conducive.
Right.
In my
Kind of
opinion.
goes back to that whole idea that we were talking about, where we would do it after work and after hours, because you need that focus, right?
Yeah.
All right. I think for today, I have an appointment that I have to get to, but I'm really thankful for you stopping in today, Martin.
Thank you.
I think we'll probably sit back down soon again and talk about other aspects of where we're going with Journey Flooring and the industry, but just a little bit of insight into what it is that you do has been, I think, really a game changer here at Journey Flooring, and we're really thankful to have you on board. We don't want to play against you, so we're glad you're on our team.
Thank you.
Because we gotta keep our A players on our side. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about, Matt, before we say goodbye today?
No, it's great. I concur. Martin has been an absolute game changer. When I had to step out of that role, I did not know how I could find somebody to do it, and Martin's taken it even up a notch further than I can do. So, Martin, appreciate you, and happy to have you on our team. That's a good phrase. Yeah, wouldn't want to be against you for sure.
Yeah, no, you're a killer member.
Thank you.
And thanks again for sitting down.
No problem, and thank you. I'm very happy to be on this team. I don't want to be on any other team, so let's win this game.
Yeah,
it's great.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys.
All right, thanks a lot, and have a great weekend.
Thank you.